Hi, family and friends. I want to thank you for listening to the Living Room podcast. It's been a true joy listening, learning, and living together. The stories shared and lessons gleaned have been funny, sobering, inspiring, and so much more. And today's episode promises to be no less impactful. I want you to know that my special guest and I discuss themes that may be triggering for some and sensitive for others, including suicide and addiction. If you feel that it would be better for you to listen with a friend or family member present so that you all can pause and process together, that's more than okay and highly encouraged. If you or someone you know is considering suicide, please call your local emergency services number. For those residing in the United States, that number is 911. And the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number is 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. More helpful resources and links to crises centers around the world can be found at www.iasp.info/resources. The website for the International Association for Suicide Prevention. Again, www.iasp.info/resources. We want you to know that you matter, you are loved, and your life is valuable. It's my hope that value has been added to your minutes, your hours, your day, and your life as a result of listening to the Living Room podcast. If you've already subscribed to the channel and have been sharing these conversations with others, thank you so much. If you haven't yet, would you kindly press that inviting subscribe button and share the links so others can grow with us? I greatly appreciate it. Again, welcome to the Living Room, and I hope you enjoy the show. God bless. Welcome to the Living Room. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend this time together. This journey that we've been on has been uplifting and inspirational. This journey of collective communal growth as well as individual growth. It's been a blessing to me. The conversations that we've had so far, the persons who have shared their stories. How have you all been experiencing it? I would love to receive your feedback. So when you're watching this and listening to it, send us a note. Drop a comment in the comment section to let us know how you have been experiencing the living room. I believe and hope that you feel like I do. Well, if this is your first time in the living room, I want to thank you for being here. And I just want to let you know that it's our mission to listen and learn. And based on what we learn from how we listen and who we listen to, we're going to add those things to our lives. So here in the living room, we listen, learn, and live together. To this end, we seek to have conversations. And today I'm honored to have a conversation with our special guest from the beautiful island of Bermuda, Mr. Lance Tucker. Lance, welcome to the living room, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm truly blessed and I'm truly grateful to be a part of this.
Man, let's just get into our conversation. Now, those who have heard me before in any capacity, they know Bermuda has a special place in my heart. What has life been like in Bermuda during this pandemic, and how are you handling the whole quarantine, social distancing bit, the pandemic in general? What's that been like in Bermuda?
Well, for me, I can't really talk on anybody else, but for me, not being able to go to work at times and secluded to my host home, it was sort of stressful because that, I'm a type of person that can't be isolated. I have to be amongst people to function. And when I'm isolated, I suffer with bipolar disorder, so that takes over my mind. So I have to constantly invite guardian to keep me sane. So it's been an experience.
I think that we can all relate to the interruption of community that we've experienced. Even if a person considers him or herself to be an introvert, this pandemic has caused us to appreciate all over again the value of being able to interact with people, even people you don't know, just being at the shop.
Yes. For me, it brought me closer to God, you know, because I had to call on him a lot, you know,
Really?
so it in a way, it gave me a peace of mind that because, you know, before the epidemic, I was all up in my head about different things. If I want to be back in church, if I want to run this ministry, if I want to do this here. But within this shutdown, it allowed me to free my mind when I was racing in my mind, like I spoke on the depression. So I also was able to slow it down and realize what was more important. It isn't always about me. It's got to be about other people.
Mm. Let me ask you this. Before the pandemic, let's go back in life. Growing up in Bermuda, I know growing up in Florida, to be honest, and forgive me, I know this is going to sound really ignorant. You're probably going to laugh, but I think I mistook Barbados, Bahamas, and Bermuda for the same place. And they're clearly three different islands. Bermuda is off the coast of North Carolina, nestled in the Atlantic Ocean, beautiful island. What was life like growing up in Bermuda?
You know, for me, it was sort of different. You know, I can't remember a lot of my past because of the journey that we'll be speaking on later. Yes. So for what I can remember, I came from a loving family, you know, and they gave me the best that they can offer. And it's sort of hard to speak on something that you really don't remember
Well,
outside of my addiction.
on that note, let's talk about that, man. And again, I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate you being willing to allow us into your world to get a sense of your experience. I have every ounce of belief that hundreds, yea, even thousands of people will be inspired and blessed and transformed by your sharing. You allowed us to know that it's challenging for you at this stage in life to really remember and recollect certain details of childhood, growing up. Why is that, man? What has your experience been like? What's going on?
From the age of 9 years old, I got involved in alcoholism. I was picked on as a child. That's a lot of my bad that I can remember. That's the messed up thing about my life, that I can only understand, or I can only remember the bad that happened to me in my childhood. And that was being picked on neighborhood children, and I have to find different ways home. And once I realized, you know, I was at this party in my house, you know, a family was having a party, and me and my brother was outside the window and looking at all the people, and a so-called family friend was drinking something. And I asked him what was he drinking, and he told me black rum and coke. So I asked him, can I taste it? And he said, I'll get you your own. And I was like 9 years old. And when I tasted it, I fell in love with it because I love anything that's sour. We used to have a lemon tree outside my kitchen window. And as a child, I used to climb up into the sink, open up the screen from the window, and pull in a lemon and eat the lemon while sitting in the sink. So when he gave me that drink, it was like something had completely taken over my body. And I found myself no longer current. Now, this didn't happen overnight. You know, within a year or two, in primary school, my whole life had changed. I went from being able to read, being able to spell, to not being able to read, to not being able to spell. By the time I was ready to leave primary school to go off to high school, I had become addicted to this alcohol, and I was in the closet. My parents and, you know, nobody knew. I was sneaking this alcohol. You know, I was pouring it in my thermos and I was taking it to school. So I think as a child, coming up into an adult, a lot of the memories that I have of my past, you know, with my family, basically comes from a photo album. I have to look inside of a photo album to see how much joy I had in my childhood.
Hmm. So 9 years old, you're introduced to alcohol by a so-called friend of the family. and you're able to recall that there was a observable, very felt difference that takes place in your learning environment. And I'm interested in this idea that you kept it to yourself. You were able to sneak this in. Did you ever feel the yearning or the desire to tell someone as a child, or to get caught so that you can get help?
No desire to get caught. Try my hardest not to get caught. I can't say that I wanted to get caught, but when I did, it was too late. By the time that I got caught, I was an alcoholic. I got caught when I was 16 years old. So from 9 to 16, I was a free bird inside alcoholism.
Did anyone observe changes between 9 and 16 and ask you questions?
No, not that I can recall. I think the biggest problem was that my education had got lost, and my mother and everybody tried to send tutors and to help me, but in my mind, I believed that I was taken over by alcoholism. That was my main focus. I didn't care about school. I didn't care about learning. They might have knew that something was changing, but they couldn't figure out what it was. And having I'm gonna say this, but having an alcoholic parent in the household, my dad, it'll be sort of hard for him to say, this my liquor's going missing, when you got a crafty son that is filling up the black rum with Coke soda and, the vodka with water, so that they wouldn't know that things are going missing. I was crafty as a child.
So you had this outlet, and you found creative ways, crafty ways to cover your bases. Now, you were mentioning, and forgive me for cutting in, you mentioned at 16, your mother has this moment of revelation, or somehow it becomes known, here's what's going on with my son. Describe that experience for us.
I was at a high school. I was in high school, and me and a brethren used to skip school. And he stayed in town, in Hamilton, that's what we call it. And his mama would go off to work. And because of our height, we used to go to the liquor store and purchase, a fifth of vodka. And we'll go back to his house and we'll set off. So I'm thinking that his mother must have been hip to what was going on. And because he had said he was sick. So I was in the house with him, and his mama comes in for lunch. I jump out the window. He jumps back in his bed. So she eats her lunch, and then she leaves. So I come back in the window. Now, we didn't hear no car or nothing come in the yard, but we heard the door open, and it was my mama and his mama. He got a beating. I got a tongue lashing. And it was like a breath of fresh air or something just came over me. I'm free. I'm no longer got to lie. And instead of trying to get better, I got worse. I am free from, hiding. I can just go right off my head. So I stopped going to school a lot. I started pack racing a lot. I started drinking a lot, and that's when I guess my tolerance for caring about things just went out the window.
So I think sometimes there can be mixed opinions and maybe muddied understanding about one's pathway towards drugs, alcohol, or other addictive substances or behavior. Sometimes people might think there's a long journey towards my introduction, but you were 9 years old. And from 9 to 16, you are having access to this, not just outside of your home with your friends, but also in your home. Even though it was a family friend that introduced you initially, do you think that, looking back, do you feel as though that there was an influence coming from home? Do you think that observing your father in any way helped you justify this? What do you think made the stronghold so strong?
I wouldn't dare put it on my family, because what you don't know, just don't know. I think the neighborhood, drew me in. because they're the same kids that picked on me, but they're the same kids that I drank with. So it was more like of the influence for me to stay stuck in my addiction was what was outside of my home. My dad was a hard working man. He supported his 4 children. Sent 3 of them off to school, and I'm the what is it, the prodigal child, and so he done what he had to do, and then he also decided to drink on his side, and but I still can't put his behaviors on me, because by 9 years old I knew what was wrong and what was right. For me to stay stuck in while I was stuck in was a personal decision. I learned about alcoholism when I was 17. I ran into my first recovery meeting, and this is how I learned at an early age of what alcoholism was.
What is alcoholism?
Alcoholism just describes what alcoholic is for me. That's how I take it. You have people that are sippers, people that can have a glass of wine and put it down, probably wouldn't even drink just about half, and walk away, and wouldn't touch another glass until probably the following week or when it's a function. An alcoholic is somebody that can't walk away from that drink. He has to finish that drink and then pick up another drink. Now, I use myself as an example. When I went to parties later in life, I rarely left the bar. In other words, I would sit at the bar while everybody's dancing and having fun, because I was afraid that I would miss out on something that was at the bar. So I would sit at that bar and drink and drink and drink until all my money's gone. To me, that's an alcoholic, a person that can't control what is going on within themselves when it comes to alcohol or any other addiction. Someone that abuses it.
There's someone listening right now who feels as though they're in that category, whether it's with alcohol or something else, some other substance, some other behavior. It can even be work. It can be addiction to approval. And sometimes there can be a stigma to the term and concept of addiction, that no one wants to label themselves, or there might be resistance to being labeled as an addict. You're addicted to this. And I want to help. I want to call for your help to help us either confirm some of those realities or demystify others. So what I want to ask is twofold. The first part is, after 9, when do you realize I'm addicted to this? How soon does it happen, or how late does it happen? Even though it's not until you're 17 that you learn the term alcoholism, looking back, when did you realize, man, I can't control myself? And then the second part of it is, how has your understanding of addiction changed? What's been your journey with wrestling with the term, with the concept, is there a distinction between the identity and also the practice?
Yeah, the first part, when did I realize I had a problem? I was 12 years old, supposed to have to leave primary school to go to high school, and can't read. Having to stay back behind, get my parents to talk to the principal to allow me to stay back a year so that I can focus, so that I can get into the school that I wanted. It was an all-boys school. That's when I realized that I had a problem, and I was sure if I wanted to get out of it. And if I did want to get out of it, by the time I got high school, all that changed, because I was around people like me. Mm. The other part, looking now back, I think I would have to share more of my story before I answer that part.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, it's because it's sort of hard to say, speak on that there without, knowing where my journey has been going.
Sure, not a problem.
You understand?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. So you're introduced to your first recovery experience. What's that like?
Scary. When I was 17, they used to smoke cigarettes, and I was like the oldest. I was the youngest person in the meetings. Uh, People were up in the 30s and up, and here I am, 17 years old, having to go to a meeting because of I was on the influence of alcohol, and the judge suggested that I go to a meeting. It was frightening, but it became the norm over the years. It became like when somebody either kills somebody or somebody has to go in and out of jail. For me, meetings, programs, rehabs became like a norm because every time I felt afraid or I disappointed my parents, that's where I ran. I ran into a meeting or I ran into a rehab so I wouldn't have to face it. So the experience of different rehabs, and it was very frightening. I'm comfortable with it now. I love it now, but it hasn't always been that way. I really resented myself for putting myself in that predicament, whereas I would have to do those meetings, and I blame myself a lot, and now I look back and just, I'm grateful for what God has allowed me to see. Even if it was negative, I'm grateful for the path that I've lived, and I don't regret nothing that I've done.
Describe to us what a meeting is like for those who have never gone to a meeting. And by the way, if you wouldn't mind sharing, what kind of meeting is this?
It's a 12-step program, and I don't know if I'm really allowed to speak on it.
That's fine.
But just know, there are, meetings all around the world. They do it for 12-step program. You can always look it up online. They would tell you exactly how to get to one, what they are for. They're for people that do hard drugs. No, not hard drugs, because all drugs are hard. Alcohol, cocaine, heroin, child abuse, whatever. They have meetings for even families that have to deal with addicts. They call that Al-Anon. You can find everything online.
So one of the things that blesses me and inspires me about you, not just your story, is after our friendship developed, and then, we'll kind of circle back around to even talk about how we met in the first place. I learned that you are an artist. I'll never forget you said, "Hey man, I'm gonna paint something for you and your wife," and then you painted for us, and not just, and no knock to anybody who doesn't feel like they're as creative. This isn't, just finger paint or, I'm trying to paint. No, it was full on beautiful works of art. Talk to us about that, man, because I feel and I sense that sometimes another misnomer about persons who might wrestle with alcoholism is that that consumes all of your life. There's nothing else that a person is, can do, or does. Where does that creative expression come from? And, how did you learn to paint, and what does it do for you?
Okay, for my because of my journey, a lot of stuff has come back to the light, whereas I learned of how I started. When I was younger, my mother used to line her children up, and we had to run across the room and draw something from the funny papers within the newspaper, and whoever done it the fastest would get a gift, and that's where it started. And found myself over the years, when I was in rehabs or just had time to myself, I will find myself sketching like my own cartoons, and that grew over the years. And then it just became like the norm for me. It was more addictive than, no, I won't say more. It was a close addiction to my art. I mean my alcoholism. Every time, because that I suffer with bipolar disorder. When I used to draw, it used to take me into a fantasy, and I draw exactly what was going on in my head. I got to, how somebody reads a book, like a adventure book, and they go into this journey. It's like the living inside that book. That's what was art. That was art for me. It was as if I was my own characters. It also became something that I hated. I stopped drawing for like almost, I don't know, almost 15 years. I stopped drawing. I'm like, I go 51 this year. So about 15 years, I stopped drawing because I lost the desire to pick up a pencil because I got caught up in so much stuff. And then when I did get the desire back about 5, 6 years ago, my father died. And then I lost all over again. About 2 years ago, somebody came up to me and says, Lance, I need a picture of a Gombe, Bermuda Gombe, for my grandson. I said, do you have a time limit that you want this painted? So he says, no, take your time. And it took me 2 years. I started the painting the beginning of this year, and I finished it the beginning of this year, and I sold it to him. And from that painting, I sold a few more, and I got the joy back. It brings me peace and it brings me anger. It's like a love-hate relationship, and I'm grateful that I do have it. Because sometimes when the station doesn't work, the TV doesn't work, leaving my house doesn't work, or just talking to somebody on the phone doesn't work, art works, and I'm able to live within myself in the art. So I'm truly grateful.
I'm grateful too, because the pieces that you've blessed us with, not only are they beautiful, but they are inspiring because anytime we see them, they are connected to our understanding of your journey. And yeah, man, I love it. Now I'm putting your business out there. Not only do you paint, but you cook. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got to talk about it. What does cooking do for you? Where does that come from?
That also comes from my mother, and my dad, actually. Um, I used to sit up at the counter at our old house and as a child and watch my mom and dad cook, and I used to go fishing with my dad and come home and I watch them, fry this fish up or boil this fish up or bake this fish up, and then we used to go shark hunting, go catch these sharks, and then he'll bring it home and he'll teach me how to make shark hash and everything else, like, macaroni and cheese came from my mom. And my mom always said that the way to a woman's heart is, is through a man cooking for him.
Mercy.
I said, oh, bet. I said, yeah, that's going to work for me. I'm going to be a chef one day. And I started cooking for them. I used to wake up in the morning, make them scrambled eggs, make them, all sorts of different eggs, because that's what they like. They love egg. And I make them breakfast in bed, and I don't know, it's like I get this sense of freedom when I'm in front of us. I don't care how hot it is in this little apartment, but I got a sense of freedom. I say the joy of it is it's pretty much closest to art. It's nothing like being able to pull stuff out from scratch and just cook, knowing that you can kill yourself by cooking, because you love doing it. So,
And
yes, I do.
And let me just say, I've had your cooking as well, and it is delicious. So you mentioned already that you have bipolar disorder. According to your understanding, what is that? And what was it that led you to discovering that you were diagnosed with that? Or what led to the diagnosis? What were your experiences like leading up to that?
Bipolar is a chemical imbalance, and the chemical imbalance is on the right side of my brain. When I was 22, 23 years old, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. By that time, I had spent maybe 5 times in a mental institution from the age of 18 to 22, 23. Because of alcoholism, I was having complications with wanting to live and waking up every morning wanting to kill myself and not knowing why. And by the time I was 19 years old, I went into my first rehab, and this was in Pennsylvania. And I had an episode, and I was on the second floor, and I scoped this tree outside the window, and I had set myself up to run down this corridor and try to jump out the window head first and hit my head on that tree to commit suicide. But my roommate at the time must have scoped what I was doing, and he clotheslined me. And 2 days later, the church decided that, they'll just pray over me and everything would be good. And a service came up about a week later, and I started like I was having a fit. But I wasn't having a fit. I was having a mental breakdown. And they sent me to this mental institution in Pennsylvania. And they couldn't explain what was going on, because they didn't really have that much time to figure out what was going on with me because I was in a program. So I left this program and I came home, and the thoughts of suicide became worse. And the more I drank, the more it got worse and worse. So I think I was on top of King Edward Hospital. I was supposed to be waiting on a doctor. And he took so long, I got impatient, and I walked to the top of the building, and I was about to jump off. And a security guard found me. So when they took me to the mental institution, it was called St. Brendan's. They decided that they would do some, research on what was going on with me, and that's when they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. But what they didn't explain to me was different levels. I think it's like A and B, different levels of what bipolar is. So later on in life, now I have a ministry. So within that ministry, we decided that we would take mental health courses so that we can deal with people like me or worse than me. And we'll be able to counsel them or, while we're talking about addiction. So in that course, I learned that majority of what bipolar is, I suffer with. I get very low to whereas I want to commit suicide. I can get to the heights of happiness where I have to be committed, but I don't want to kill myself. I also go through pains with every joint and muscle in my body, whereas I can't even get out of bed. And that's only happened to me twice in my life. And thank God I had people around me when I went through this. It was one overseas in a rehab and once in Bermuda when I was dating. And the girl that I was dating, she looked it up on the internet just to find out how she can deal with me. And I was truly grateful just for that. So throughout my life, I've dealt with basically not wanting to live. I still can't really understand why I was going through that. Not just by knowing that I suffer with bipolar disorder, but how could I want to kill myself when I'm worth so much? But I see that now. I didn't see that then. It's been a journey. And I'm truly grateful that God has allowed me to see or reach this far in my life.
First of all, I just want to say that I too am grateful that God has allowed you to see yourself, even as you mentioned the incident where another gentleman who was with you scoped out what he perceived to be you were trying to do and clothesline you. The security guard finds you. It seems as though at very important checkpoints, there's an intervention where it could have gone another way, but it didn't. To your knowledge, is there a necessary connection between the alcohol use and bipolar? Does one exacerbate the other? In order to be bipolar, do you have to be an alcoholic? And I'm asking again because not everyone might be familiar with either one or both. What has your experience said?
Okay, I learned now that with the kind of bipolar I have, every 3 months, that's when I would have an episode. But because I was drinking alcohol or I was on drugs, it it became every day. So every day I had to figure out how I'm gonna live my life, or if I'm gonna get out of my bed. Fortunate enough of my parents, if they wasn't there for me, I don't think I would actually be here. So a lot of the times they knew what I was going through and they allowed me to just go through what I had to go through. Most people would have to get up and go work. They understood what was going on with me. And so I had a good bit of peace for a lot of my pain because I knew that I had people that loved me, and with a person, well, I won't say with a person, but with me, it's hard to see or feel that somebody actually loves you in the condition that you are in. So a lot of times in relationship, I had to hide it. When I was in my teens, I had to hide that I had that I was getting into mental institutions, and then I got into a part in my life today, whereas if they don't love me for who I am, then they really don't need to be a part of my life. I respect who I am today because of what God has done for me. So if I wake up tomorrow morning feeling suicidal, I know in my mind that I can control it today. Today it ain't about me sitting in a corner with my head between my legs, or me trying to push my head through my bedroom window, or me screaming to the top of my lungs, and people thinking that it's for an attention, when in fact it's because I'm hurting and I want to hurt myself. Today I know how to control it, and I don't take medication. A lot of people tell me, friends and people, when I share my testimonies on Facebook, and people feel that, oh, you should be on medication. They don't understand it. Medication that sometimes makes it worse. And I explained that. I was in a car about 4 years ago. I was in my mama's car. And the girl that I was with 5 years ago, I was with this girl, and she wanted me to take medication because she couldn't deal with me. So I took medication, and I drove these people in my car to a meeting. And when we came out of the meeting, my mind told me everybody's in the car. So the gentleman that was sitting in the passenger seat, he was in the car, and the car door was closed. The person that was sitting behind me, that door was closed, and they was in the car. The woman that was sitting on the other side of him, the door wasn't closed. She wasn't even in the car. And my mind told me to reverse and take off. And all I heard was all this screaming and people run across the street. I almost took this woman's arm off because my mind was under influence of a chemical drug that my mind has, so it basically took over my mind and told me that everything was good. I've been off drugs for so many years, but putting this new drug in me messed me up for a brief moment. So now I know how to deal with me. And I'll continue to say that I don't take medication, but I would never tell nobody else to don't take medication because everybody's different. And the walk that I have and the relationship that I have with God, I can trust that I don't have to take medication to live. I can live through the pain and the blessings because I have a God in my life. And that's been shown by the people that love me. So I'm on a different level today, sort of. And I'm grateful.
There's a concept, gateway activity or gateway substances. Over the years, in wrestling with, experimenting with, being addicted to alcohol, was that a gateway to other substances in your life?
No, I truly don't believe that. I don't believe any. I don't believe that marijuana takes you to harder drugs. I don't believe alcohol takes you. That's a personal choice, unless somebody slips you a Mickey. In my case, same with the alcohol, so-called friend. I smoked marijuana. I do believe that, if I would have never started drinking, that maybe I wouldn't have been on a different, path or whatever. But I don't really believe that because that I done alcohol, I smoked weed, which I didn't like that much. When I got onto crack cocaine, I was smoking weed. And a brethren of mine, we was over down this guy's house, and a brethren of mine had a spliff in his ear, and he didn't smoke crack. So why would crack be in a joint in his ear? So I asked, can I have a pull from it? Instead of him telling me it's laced with something, he just passed it to me. And I fell in love with it right there and there. It was a different taste. It was a different feeling. You know, some people get hype up. I got very relaxed and calm. You know, it was like I'm not a violent person. So it was like it was taking me back to who I am, calm and collect. You know, it gave me a sense of peace within a bipolar world, this alcoholism world. I stopped drinking. You know, everything that became about this drug. I didn't care about my family after a while. I didn't care about who loved me, who said they think they love me. Um, my woman, my God was this drug, you know, and I done some things in my life. Like I said, I don't regret nothing in my past, but I've done some things that has become testimonies, you know, and hopefully somebody will listen and heard they really don't have to go down that path and really don't trust your friends. If you're one of them type of people that's, you know, corner boys, guys that sit on the corner of your yard and you think that your brethrens and you're smoking and you're drinking and this and that, I don't trust them no more. You know, I don't trust them to a certain degree. The same ones that I ran with, because I can't put blame on nobody. This was all my decision to do. If I would not ask for that spliff, I wouldn't have been on crack cocaine. But then again, I can't even say that. You know, so the brethren that I watched grow up from young men to young dealers, crack and drug dealers, are the same ones that somewhat respect me today. And I say somewhat because that, you know, if they see somebody offering me a drink or something like that, they would, you know, intervene and say, no, he don't do none of that no more. But if I was to relapse, they would sell the drug to me because that's their business. So that's why I say somewhat. You know, so it's been a path.
I've heard it said before, and I'm very open to being corrected because you're introducing me and helping me to understand more of this journey, that sometimes the pathway or the beginnings of one's journey toward recovery begins with either a rock bottom experience or a series of rock bottoms. Is that true in your case? Was there a lowest point where you said, there has to be another page in my chapter, or were there a series of points or experiences? Did people come and intervene? What was that like? What turns you towards recovery?
I always said, I never want to get married. I never want to become a part of a police force or nothing like that. I want to be a drug user. And this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Now, I know I'm going to hurt some people, but I really don't care. This is what I love. So I'm going to rob my mom. I'm going to rob my dad. And I'm not even going to care about it. You know, and my mom kept saying, yeah, I'm going to have faith in you. One day you're going to change. And I turned around and I used that against her. And I used it against her. So I got to this point in 2008. I was introduced to Seven-Day Adventists. I was invited from a young lady I call my angel. So I came to this event and I got comfortable, but the thing was that where I come from into a place where I believe in Satan, I worship Satan, and I don't care if anybody believes that that I live this life, going in graves and Halloween seances and all this. So, and plus, grew up in the church, but my mind went on to a different level. So I come to Seventh-day Adventists, and I never experienced a love from a people that isn't my mother or my father, like I've had this year in the Seventh-day Adventists. But the problem was, my crack house was across the street, and I smoked cigarettes. So every time service break, before service kicks in, I go up through the tracks and I'll be smoking a cigarette and glancing over to the house that I was getting high in, So the love of church pretty much went out the window, whereas I was constantly worrying about what's going on in that crack house more than what's being spoken in at this church. So one day, I ended up in that crack house. But I still come to church high out of my head. And nobody said nothing, and nobody judged me and nobody pushed me away. But in my mind, I was judging myself. How could you be having one foot in Christ and one foot in Satan? You're falling backwards. So I left church completely. But one young lady stuck beside me, visited me when I was back in these mental institutions, had talks with me here and there. And when I finally decided, well, didn't really decide, but in 2009, I came back to Seventh-day Adventist. I came back into recovery because that I almost died in the hospital room, and I made this promise. I'm telling, memories. So I'm in the hospital bed. My heart's giving me, and they're washing me off. But before that, I'm whispering to my mom, I'm dying, and I'm not. I don't want my niece or my sisters to hurt. And they washed me off to another part of the hospital, hooked this heart monitor up to me. And then I had this conversation with God, and I'm saying, if you spare my life, I'll never use again. And I know I've made that promise so many times, like in the crack house, if you get me out of this situation, I'll never get high again. And then somebody will walk in with drugs and I'll say, all right, I ain't worrying about you, God. I'm going to get back high again. But for some reason, when I made this decision, when it was time for me to come out of the hospital, I walked right into a recovery meeting. And I went to a meeting every day, 7 days a week, for 2 years. And I was still battling with my demons because I didn't want to be in recovery. I didn't want to be clean. I want to be back out in the street with my brethren. I want to be out there getting high. I don't want this life. I don't know this life. For 31 years, I've been an addict since I was 9 years old till I was 30. 9 years old to 39 years. I've been a using addict, on and off. So what about this life that I'm supposed to know? I don't know this life. So what am I supposed to do in this life? Just live? And I started to hate it. But I made this promise because now I'm a part of a 7-day Adventist where I got these people that are worrying about me, that showing me love because they understand, because I'm stood up on stage and I'm told my testimony about my addiction and this and that. And I'm still not loving myself. But people are loving me, and eventually it teaches me that I am worthy. So 6 years clean. I'm in a 12-step program meeting, and I'm celebrating. And all these people are coming from all around the island to celebrate me. And I break down and cry because I didn't realize until that day that I could never drink alcohol again. My first love, I could never drink alcohol again. And that's when I realized that I have to make a change. I need to focus on living instead of dying. And I think that's when everything came to the light for me. Not saying that I ain't struggled throughout these years, because I have 11 years off of cocaine and alcohol. So something's been working, and I know it's God.
Each year you celebrate sobriety, you receive this item that I've seen you with. What is that, and why is it important to you?
Waking up to me is a victory from God. There's tags of victory in my recovery. Each year I make 1 year, I got a black tag. The key tags, letting me know that I got to. It's like celebrating a birthday. Some people would throw a birthday party, and that's the same thing that would happen in recovery. What we do is you get 1 month clean, we celebrated. 2 months clean, we celebrated. 3 months clean, we celebrated. 6 months clean, 9 months, 1 year, 18 months, multiple years. we celebrate the person. And, we let them know how strong they are and how much they blessed you in their lives or whatever, and it makes you feel like you achieved something. And for years that, even though I didn't care that I was a addict, um, I would never show people that I'm an addict. You would have to know me to know that I'm an addict, or somebody's had to tell you. But I wear these key tags proudly. I got married in them. I've been through some hard times in them. I've been through some beautiful times. I got baptized in them a few times. And they don't leave my side. Many times I felt like, why am I still doing this? Take them off. But no, this would be like taking a part of me off. So when I got on a plane, some people will hide it to say, oh, I don't want customs look at this. They might think I'm an addict and I'm trying to smuggle something in. I run proudly. I run right through the airport. This is my victory. It shows me and it keeps me, when my mind is very, because I can be in a gas station in Bermuda now. It never used to be this like this before, but in Bermuda now, they have liquor. So when I came into recovery, I used to go to this gas station, and they never used to have liquor, and I felt like this was my safe place. And then a few years later, they started putting liquor in there. So I find myself sometimes just standing in front of it. It's like I'm looking at my past, licking my lips, and then I look down and I see my key tag, and I say, "Yeah, that ain't for you," and I'll walk away. So it brings me aware. I know that God puts these little things in front of you to so you can snap out of whatever you're in. But sometimes my mind really isn't on God. It's like I'm stuck on this past and this alcohol that, I can't say, Lord, please help me. So I look down, and that's him helping me.
And I definitely think that there is a connection between recovery and celebration. And it is inspiring to hear that even something as some would call it simple as a keychain or a key tag, but I think objects have symbolic meaning. Objects, they're just material, but it's the meaning behind them that can help us say, wow, this journey, this milestone, this experience. Some people may never appreciate it or may never understand it, but that you are proud of it and are able to display it. As I was preparing for our conversation, I definitely wanted to have you speak to that because I do think it's a powerful symbol of something that people might not even have enough time in a day to really hear you go into, to share just how far you've come in this journey. Speaking of, again, how far you've come in this journey, recovery, is it a one day at a time experience? And is it the work of a lifetime? Is there a journey? Is there a point where you get to and you're no longer in recovery? You have arrived? Help us with that.
I'm going to give you a story that just happened to me. With this recovery, you have people in your life in recovery that you can call on. I know I said that I ain't going to speak on it, but I'm going to speak on it. We have sponsorship, and sponsor is somebody that helps you through the 12 steps of a 12-step program. I battled with that, so I wasn't even sure about it because I felt that I don't need some man to help guide my life when I'm got God. So I took on about, when I had 9 years clean, I took on a sponsor. And I was just having, hard times dealing with, let's put it this way. I cut somebody out of my life and I hated them. Now, I'm that type of person that says that, I heard people say, oh, I don't like that person, but I love him because it's a child of God. Now, I know within myself that when I say I hate somebody, I really hate that person and I don't love you because that's my character defect. And I'm going to sit back and say that I love you when in the back of my mind, I know that God knows that I don't. So I needed somebody to help guide me. And this is how God works. So I asked this guy to be my sponsor. A few months down the road, the guy that I'm supposed to be hating, the guy that was the best man in my wedding, and I was the best man in his wedding, he becomes my sponsee brother. So God done for me what I couldn't do for myself. Now, I was hating him for the wrong reasons. I wasn't hating him for what was going on. I was hating him because I've learned how to hate people in my addiction. That's a wall that I put up. Now, I could have fixed it when he made amends to me and apologized to me. I could have said, cool, I accept it. But because I like hating people, I don't care, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, I've lived this past, it doesn't change overnight. I had to learn how not to hate this person. So God says, look, I'm going to put this man right in your path. I'm going to make him your sponsee brother. So now you got to love him. But not really, I ain't got to love him. But we sat down one day and I made amends. And I told this man I loved him. I had to change. I forgot what we were talking about.
Hey, it's okay. We're in the living room. It's all right. We help each other out.
I ran on a course, so bring me back.
Well, no, to be honest, that was powerful and meaningful, the idea of transformation on deeper levels. So you're on this journey of recovery, and this is going to be a funny moment because I just got so caught up in what you were sharing, I forgot what I asked too. It was so good. Real talk. Let me just comment on that because I think that we do wrestle at times with forgiveness, with reconciliation. But you had a thought that you were going to share.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back to now. This is where I'm at now. This is what happened a few weeks. I mean, instead go on. I now sad to go on. But while this pandemic was on, I'm praying to God saying, do I need these meetings? Because you asked, when do you stop being an addict? So I'm saying, God, I'm got this ministry now, right? So I can help people. I don't really need to be going to these meetings no more. So I'm getting caught up in this prayer, and I'm Saturday comes, and I'm saying like, because I got complacent, and I said I don't need these sponsors no more. I don't need my sponsor brothers no more. I don't need people in NA. I mean, trust that program. I don't need that. So I'm gonna walk away from it because God told me. But did He tell me? Did they ask what should I do? Is it His voice I heard, or was it I wanted? And I realized it was what I wanted, said be going. So I got rid of all these people that the brother that I hated, he's got cancer. I was there for him, but I'm gonna kick him out of my life again because that I don't need nobody. So, but I don't really know people within my church that's struggling that they can help me with what I'm going through now. But I know if I ask for them, they'll help me because they're part of my network. But I'm chasing away the people that I know that's struggling with things that can actually be an example in my life. The God says, look, you already made amends to me. Make amends to your sponsor. So I called my sponsor and I said, look, I need you to be my sponsor again. Because I realized that I was being complacent. And what I told you about God wasn't true. It was my own stupidity that wanted to get away from the recovery life and live just a Christian life. So to answer your question is, we never stop being addicts. In my heart, I never stop being an addict. That's what keeps me clean. I'm a child of God first. I wasn't meant to be an addict, but that's what happened. But I consider myself an addict because in my past, when I said that I wasn't an addict, I relapsed again. I can't say that for other people. We can't, if I know that somebody's using drugs or I assume that somebody's using drugs, I can't call them an addict. They can only call themselves an addict. Y'all making me see a lot. My eyes being reopened. And I'm thankful for that. I thank you for that.
Let me ask
I needed that.
I want to ask one question in two parts. The first part would be, there's a mother or a father or a relative who has a friend or another family member who's battling addiction, based on your experience and what can that person do? How can I, let's use myself as an example, if I have a friend or if I have a family member who's battling addiction, how can I best serve them? I understand that each case will be different because everybody's different, but in general, is there a way that we can understand? Because I can imagine that there's a lot of frustration for the person who's not addicted in seeing their loved one, their son, their daughter, their parent, their cousin, their friend, and they want to help, but they don't know how to help. How can they help? What can they do? How does one be patient on the journey? How does one intervene?
I would just say love that person unconditional. You know, it's sort of hard to try to get people to become. It's sort of hard to ask people to step out of their comfort zone to be what you want them to be. So just love them. You know, the one thing I can respect from my parents is they just stuck beside me. Now, some people will call that enabling because I stayed up underneath the roof and I done a lot of stupidness. You know, some people put you out of in love. You know, whatever suits you that you feel that will help them in the long run. That's what you do. My mom had faith. My mom was a praying woman, so she prayed. You know, she might have enabled me with a roof over my head, but everything else was cut off. You know, if I wanted money, I had to either steal it or work for it. One thing I hated when I was out there was people bugging me about getting into treatment. I ran into a lot of treatments just to get off the island. I've been, like I said, Pennsylvania. I went twice. This was vacation. I went to Canada twice. Vacation. The church actually sent me on my last rehab, and I won't say that was vacation, but it was an experience. I knew that they loved me when they did it because it wasn't them sending me, it was me asking to go, you know, and I was afraid 3 months in my recovery, I felt that I was going to relapse. And I went to somebody that I thought of as a spiritual guide, and they took it to the board and they sent me away. But the real me was killing me when I was out there, and I had to come back. So just trust and believe that your child, your loved one, or whatever is going to one day change, and pray. You know, prayer in my life is one of the biggest, you know, I believe, when I say I believe in prayer, I believe in it. I believe in it so much, whereas if I'm deep in depression and I feel that I can pray, I ask people to pray for me. I don't care if it's social media, whatever. I ask people to pray because I believe that it will touch me in some way. You know, so prayer is the best way. Now, if you feel that you need to go a different route, then like I said, online, you can look up different meetings, different fellowships and rehabs that you might want to send your child or loved one. But know that the only time they change is when they want to be changed, not when you want them to be changed. I never did for my mama. I love that drug so much more than my mama. You know, so yeah, just have faith that one day they will change.
You mentioned that your father passed away and that also took away to some degree your love for art. How long ago did he pass away, and where are you now on that journey of recovery from the passing of your father?
That was a hard one for me. I found my daddy, my father dead in my yard. I was going to work one morning, and I came upstairs and I found him laying in front of my car, dead. And I didn't believe it at first, but then, you know, when I kept shaking him, calling his name, I had to realize that he was gone. And my biggest fear was I going to relapse? Because when I came into recovery, I said that anything health-wise happens to me, or anything happens to my parents, I'm going to take my life. because I can't be on this earth without him. And when he passed, if it wasn't for my church family and my recovery family, you wouldn't be talking to me right now. Because every attempt that I've made on my life, and God has brought me back, it was on purpose. It wasn't never a mistake. And now, looking back, I would have been that type of person. My belief is different now because I'm Seventh-day Adventist. Sorry to laugh on that one, but it was still hard for me. I had to go down to his grave for like 2 years. Then very rarely is in India, but it brought peace to me. This was a man that never told me that he loved me. He shared it, but I didn't see it because I was blinded by, what I thought love was. You had to tell me that you love me. And two weeks before he died, he actually told me that he loved me. So I couldn't accept his death, really. And I never spoke on it. Never spoke on that I accepted that he died, until now. Just by saying what I just said. I felt that he left me too soon. But it was me that left him too soon. My life through my addiction kept the joy that we could have, more that we could have when he was alive. And I had to learn that it wasn't his fault that I was the way I was, or that he couldn't tell me that he loved me because his dad never told him, So I had to grow up. I miss him, but that's all I can do is miss him and live my life.
If you could use this moment to say something to your mother, what would you say to her?
I appreciate you. When you have a woman in your life that loves you unconditionally and proved it many, many, and many times through all that I put her through, I'm truly grateful that God allowed me to have that kind of woman in my life. My mother taught me how to respect women. I might have messed up a few times, but I've never been that man that would lay a hand on a woman because I would never do it to my mother. And I think it's just by her being there, just loving me. It's nothing more really I can say about it. I've told her many times how much that I love her, that I'm appreciative of her. When my dad died, I said I'm not gonna go by through life not telling people I love them. I tell people I love them. That brings joy to my heart.
Well, I don't think you can just tell people. I think you need to hear it too. And I love you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I love you too.
We've had conversations before, you, me. For those who were wondering what I meant when I said Bermuda is special to me, if you don't know, my lovely wife is from Bermuda, and I say this without being paid, pumped, or primed. Bermuda is my favorite place in the world. I love it. I love it. I love it. It has a lot of meaning to me, and not just because of my wife, but in all honesty, I've been able to develop relationships with so many people, including you, who have been kind enough to, you don't have to let people into your world, you don't have to tell people your story. And when I say you, I mean a person. A person doesn't have to just develop friendship or relationship with someone else. At some level, there's a choice, there's an endearment, and anytime we get together, it's always, I leave, I believe, better as a result of it. I want to ask you, just here as we're coming to a close, what keeps you on the road to recovery? You've been on it. When you wake up tomorrow morning and you make that choice to stay the course, why?
Because I find the love of God. I've never experienced, like I've shared about people and how much they love me and, family. But to come to an understanding of someone that unconditional loves me through everything I've been through, how can I not repay him by just living? But I have a ministry called Walk in the Spirit. The epidemic might have put a hold to it, but in my heart, through God, it hasn't stopped. It will continue. A ministry whereas I only answer to God, built around to helping addicts in Bermuda, telling our story, feeding, or just educating, and an addict like me being able to go into schools in this island and tell my story only through the grace of God. Me living today, ooh, me living today is a respect then for God. That's why I wake up every morning. That's why I cry just about every night now because of what I'm going through. But I know that no matter what I whatever I go through, I will grow through it. Long as I put Him first. And see, I had to learn that from people like your wife and now you. I'm gonna put your name out there, Kyla. So Kyla's the angel. Mm. If it wasn't for Kyla, I wouldn't know God the way I know God. I think God put her in my life when I truly needed somebody to open my eyes to something other than myself. And I appreciate her for it. Don't tell I said that, right? But it's amazing who God puts in your life. And that's why you become an angel, not just through her, being my angel, but the kind of person that you are and that love that comes across from even when you sat down, look, I asked you to sing and play the piano for so I can record it. When I go through whatever I go through, when it comes to depression, I pull it out and I listen to it. And tears come out to my eyes because not too many people will put their self aside just to do something for you. And you did that for me. So I got something to have on my friend until my friend decides to die. So I appreciate you too.
Yeah, man. I just think as you're sharing, I know my mind is just coming up filled with faces, including my wife's. She is a jewel. And I think listeners have people in their lives too, whether they're blood relatives or friends or strangers, who, if they didn't take the time, it's not difficult to imagine where life could be. And, you're not limiting God's work to one person, but you're thankful for that person, for them obeying in that moment, to pause, to speak, to turn around, whatever it was. If there's somebody right now who's listening, it could be a 9-year-old, it could be a 99-year-old or anywhere in between, and they're listening to you, man, Lance, and they do not feel like they're redeemable. They don't feel worthy. They don't feel like they can recover. Maybe they have experienced relapse, or maybe they haven't even turned that page yet. What do you say to them?
Believe that anything is possible. I'm going to give you a few testimonies, and I must tell you why. I walked off the hill onto the South Shore Road, the main road, not knowing that God had somebody in play again, walking behind me. And I got to the bottom of the hill, and I stood on the sidewalk, and I waited for a truck to come. But I think a bus came instead, and I went to jump in front of this bus or truck, and the gentleman gripped my shirt and pulled me back. That's God. I was in a crack house on the second floor, and a guy let the smoke out, went in the kitchen, pulled out a knife, and it said, if anybody leaves this room or tries to leave this room, I'm killing everybody in it. And the first chance I got, I slid the door open, and I jumped from a 2-story building. And within an hour, I came back to the same crack house to get high. That's insanity. Like I said, I always had a bed to go home to. But I've been so many times, I've been so high, I was ashamed to go home. So I slept underneath a building where rats were running across my face. But yet, I'm still here because I believed. Somewhere in my heart, I believed that God had me. Now, who the God was, I wasn't sure. But because my mom had faith in me, because people that learned to love me had faith in me, I was pulled out of my situation. So never believe that someone doesn't love you, maybe because of the way they're treating you, because maybe that's the way you're treating them. But it's someone that does love you and somebody that does want to see you change one day at a time. You can't do one day at a time, one moment at a time, 1 minute. Just have faith or learn to have faith.
Here's our final question. If you can send a text message or a WhatsApp message to yourself 10 years into the future, what would it say?
We made it. Can I say why? Through everything I've been through, we talked about alcoholism. We talked about cocaine. 3 years ago, I got in a bike accident, almost lost my life. And through the result of me almost losing my life, I stopped smoking cigarettes. 3 years off of not smoking cigarettes, and I've been smoking since I was 19 years old, and I never wanted to stop. A year ago, I gave up Red Bulls, and that was a new addiction. It was worse than the crack cocaine. A year ago, I found out that my esophagus has been shrinking to the point where as I was falling on the ground, I couldn't breathe. I'm shouting out for help. Nobody can hear me because I couldn't breathe. So I had to go in the hospital. They stretched open my esophagus, and we do that once a year, but just go in for checkup. 6 months later, I was back in the hospital, had to get my esophagus forced open because I was having problems eating. The breathing wasn't that bad, but eating, I was having problems. 6 months later, 5, 6 months later, I'm talking with doctors to go to Boston in the next few months for an operation to change my esophagus so that I can breathe and eat better. So within 10 years from now, and I say I made it, it's because I'm grateful for everything that God has pulled me through. Now, this might sound kind of out there, or you might not believe what I believe. And I hope I don't hurt nobody's feelings or nobody takes offense to this. But because of 11 years I've lived in my life, whereas I feel like these have been my best years, even through the struggles, I also believe that if I was to die tomorrow, I'm still grateful because I believe that I am saved by God, no matter if it's her or not her on earth. That's how far faith is in. And I have to believe this because I'm getting nifty knife. And I have a relationship with God that is so amazing that I can actually say that, that if I don't get it, I'm with it. Some people say, oh, God didn't bring us out into the beach just so we can die. Sometimes I feel that he brings you on the beach. That's how you can live, even if you're living just in that moment. See, if he brought me up on that beach, and then 2 days later, I died. Those 2 days were the best days in my life. Because those 2 days I wasn't getting high. Those 2 days I wasn't abusing somebody's love. Those 2 days I wasn't drinking alcohol. Those 2 days I wasn't doing things ungodly. Because I was just sitting up on that beach. So for him to turn around and take me, I'd rather him take me now in the love that and respect that I have for him than the hate that I had for him when I was in my addiction. So I'm grateful.
We made it. Lance Tucker, thank you for spending time with us in the living room.
Truly appreciate this.
Our conversation has taken us from childhood to manhood and into the future. You have allowed us, privileged us, to become sensitized to themes that are not always easy to talk about or hear about through your own story, and we don't take that lightly. We are better because we have listened to you and we have learned from you. And for everyone listening, I want you to join me in praying, if you pray, in applying what we have learned to our lives, whether it was the part where we were inspired and charged to love the people in our lives that might not always be easy to love because we might not understand where they are, or whether you are the person who really can plug into Lance's story by way of your own experience, and you have had self-doubt. You have struggled to forgive yourself, to forgive others, to love yourself. God loves you unconditionally, and there is hope even from where you are. Listen, brother, this has been a phenomenal experience, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Thank you all for joining us in the living room. I told you all that you were not going to regret coming to the living room, investing the time, because we grow together. And we grow together by listening and learning that we might become the best version of ourselves in this life. This is all we have for you on this episode. Our special guest has been Mr. Lance Tucker of Bermuda. Until next time, continue to listen, continue to learn, and continue to live. God bless you.